Today we are going to tie the Purple King. This will be tied on an Alec Jackson blind eye hook. 2091 is the number from Daiichi. The Purple King first appeared in Francis's book in 1867, a book on angling. It's also in A. Knox's book Autumn on the Spey. The body for this fly will be a light purple mohair, or I have purple mohair, so that's up to your choice, the shade and how historic you want to be. Ribs will be gold and silver tinsel and silver twist, which will go over the hackle to bind it down to the shank. In these recipes, when it just specifies tinsel, I prefer to stick with oval tinsel rather than flat tinsel. It seems like if it was flat in these recipes, it's usually specified as flat. There will be throat of teal, and then it'll be the wings of bronze mallard, which will be set as low as possible, and they'll look like an upside down boat's hull without the keel. That's actually the goal you're trying to reach, is to get that shape of the wings to look like an upside down boat's hull without the keel. So here we go. We'll get this started. I'm going to use some white tying thread just so you can see this is actually a little bit heavier. This is a 6/0 uni thread. It just has some strength. Since we're doing a blind eye, I like to be able to pull on the thread a little bit harder when I'm attaching the silk gut. Now I like to start up a little bit on this, and I'm going to bind the silk gut the whole length of the shank, and I like to start up a little bit on the shank and then wrap forward over the tag instead of starting at the very front and wrapping back and then back to the front again. You're already building up extra bulk which you really don't need. And it's okay if these wraps aren't edge to edge or perfectly flat. We don't have any silk floss body or a tinsel that we need to be perfectly aligned or perfectly flat. And get up to the front here. And this hook can be a little tricky to tie on to get the gut on, because right at the front of this hook it's very fine. The wire is very fine. Alright, so that's about a good stopping place. And I'm going to pick out a piece of silk gut here I already messed with a little bit. As you can see, the ends are a bit chewed on. Literally, that's what I did. I chewed on the ends. I put them in my mouth to flatten them up a little bit, and then I like to trim it a little bit as well, so it gets a little bit of taper when it gets back to the rear of the hook. There, you have a nice smooth transition. No noticeable bump. In order to get a nice round eye on the silk gut, one thing that I like to do is to take a bobbin, put this right around the shaft of the bobbin there, and get it kind of so you have the length right and so it's centered there. Press that on the bobbin and really pinch it with your nails. You can even wiggle it back and forth a little bit, and that'll start to give you the shape of the eye just enough, because you can always come back in when you get to the front of the fly, or when you get done tying the fly, and you can put a pair of scissors up in the middle and spread it out a little bit. Now for this guy, I'm going to have this silk gut attached to the bottom of the shank. I'm going to lash this down very tightly. And the gut is a little stiff. It doesn't sit nice and perfect or nice and easy as Dacron does. Yeah, I'm going to tie this for a fishing fly, so I want to make sure these wraps are nice and tight. And we'll keep working my way back. Trim a little bit of this here to help with the taper, so I see some of it sticking out. This silk gut's pretty strong too, as far as its durability. You can really push on it with your nails and bend it a bit. 90-degree bends and it'll crack. But if you chewed on it for a little bit in your mouth, like the back ends there, they'll stay somewhat soft. I'm going to stop right there. That's fine. You don't really want to go all the way back in this area for your spay flies. It's even if I stopped a little shorter right there, that would have been fine too. But I always make sure I stop right at the point or in front of it. It just seems for it makes a sleeker look in the fly, especially on this stretched out shank, and the gape's kind of narrow or small. The next thing I like to do for these guys is to grab some crazy glue. Smear some of that on there, both sides, even on the bottom a little bit. That'll just help to make things a little bit stronger in the long run. The show fly, I don't really need to put the glue on it. You can just go as is, since it's not going to be getting pulled on by a big 20-pound steelhead. It's just going to be sitting in the frame. But this guy, this is going to be in a big steelhead's mouth. At least we hope anyway. I'll take a little one. Alright, so now that we're at the rear, I like to tie in this is the mohair. I've actually trimmed this a little bit. It's an English mohair. You can find this in a local craft store. If you got a local sewing shop around, or embroidery shop, it's a good place to go to find some of these old style yarns. They don't necessarily be called Borland wool or other types, but you can find things that are reasonably close. I'm going to tie this in on the far side of the hook shank here with just 2 wraps. You don't need too many. The next feather I tie in, the next material I tie in is the feather. And as you can see, this is the good side facing you here. I already have this side stripped. The hackle calls for a spaycock hackle with some black in it, blackish brown or brownish black. So this has a little bit of barring in there, and it also has a little bit of sheen to it. So it'll have a cool little look. This is actually a schlappen feather. I find this works just fine as long as you can find them in longer sizes with some nice long fibers on them. These could be a little bit longer, but this will definitely do. And I stripped this left side off because I'm going to tie this in by the butt, and this hackle is going to be wrapped the opposite way as the tinsel. So I'm going to roll the hook over here, tie this right in on the bottom of the hook shank, a couple wraps moving forward. Trim that stem off, some of it at least, to help with the transition of materials as we progress into the this little juncture right here. Alright, now what I like to tie in first, as far as the tinsel, this is going to be the twist. This is going to go in on the far side. Just a couple turns for now because we have some more materials to put in. Now next you can either tie in the gold tinsel, oval tinsel, or the silver. It's up to you. I don't think it really matters which one goes first. And I'm using a large oval tinsel for this. So on this far side, I'm going to tie the gold in first, right at the back there. I'm going to work my way forward over this time because I want some space in between these two guys. When you start to wrap the ribs, if they're tied in at the same point, the spacing gets off in the back and it throws the taper off, or throws the spacing off. So that's why I'm tying in the gold tinsel back here, going up a little ways, and then I'll tie in the silver tinsel this time. The more you tie these, you'll figure out how big of a space you want in between each tinsel. You'll get used to each hook size and each style. So this is actually fairly easy to tie. The most of this fly, it's just getting things set right, tied in the right places at first. So now I'm working my way forward here, keeping everything to its respective side. Alright, I'm going to keep using this heavier thread too for this first part. I like using it too. This tinsel is kind of soft and easy to work with, but even sometimes when you go down to your 70 denier thread, it can actually fray the thread a little bit. So I'll just stick with the heavier stuff for now because we still have some room when we get up here to the eye. We can switch threads when we get up there. Alright, first thing we need to do, wrap this hackle. Get one turn behind the feather there and the tinsels. It can be a little tricky at first getting some of this stuff out of the way, kind of juggling stuff almost. Alright. And you can use the rotary function of your vise to speed up the body process there. Now I didn't tie a half hitch or anything in there, so I have to unwrap these thread wraps I made since it's adding some bulk to the front of the fly. And one of the trademarks of these spey flies is having a nice thin body. That's going to be about good right there. You can see we have some more room left over there, and that'll be good for when we tie these tinsels off and the feather, and it will also be good to have that little bit of room when it comes time to tie the collar and also mount the wing. We need a few turns there, tie that off. You can see that mohair gives it just a nice little bugginess to it, and you can brush that out a little bit too if you wanted to after you get the tinsels going. And we'll start with this front tinsel first. And try to get 5 evenly spaced ribs here. When you get this first set of ribs done nicely, it helps to give you kind of like a guide almost when you start wrapping the rest of the other materials here. Trim that guy off. And we're going to go with the gold. This guy turned right here. Be a little tricky at first. That's okay. If it was easy, we wouldn't want to do it, and these flies wouldn't look as good as they did and as they do today. So now you can see that body's really starting to take a nice shape, get a cool color. You can see how the gold and the silver work together and add a nice flash. Unwrap a few turns there from mounting the previous tinsel. Some turns there. See, this is looking pretty good. Spaced out real nice. Trim that excess off. Now it's time for the hackle. I'm going to wrap this the opposite direction. Just pulling these guys out away from the stem here, so lay out nice. I'll just keep pulling these fibers back little by little as I go. Right at the front here, get these fibers back out of the way. I like to take just one extra turn. Just adds just a little touch of bulk in the front, not much. Just a little extra hackle. Now keep this, since we wrap this feather the other way, you want to make sure you keep it tight in your hand here while you wrap it. You don't want to make one turn and let go, or it'll start coming loose a little bit, since our thread wraps are going the opposite way of the wraps we did with the feather. After about 3 or 4 turns you can let go and you'll be just fine. Alright, next step is to take the silver tinsel, actually a twist, and we're going to wrap over this stem. We're going to wrap this the same way as the other tinsels here. Get one right at the very back here, and I'm using my bodkin to separate these fibers, keep them out of the way as I move forward. This can be a little tricky, a little frustrating at first. Once you get going, you start to get into the rhythm, so to speak. So a little tedious, a little more time consuming, but definitely worth it for fishing durability. Wrap that all the way up. Tie that off. A little strand come off here. Get that guy out of the way. Now what you can do is take a toothbrush and actually brush these guys out. Next material we're going to do is we're actually going to switch this thread out. We're going to go to a finer thread, a black thread to finish it off. So I'm just going to put a little half hitch in here real quick. Trim that off. Now we'll go back to our 70 denier. Attach that. Now our next material is going to be the teal. So this adds a real nice barring to the fly and adds some contrast. And as you can see, I've already stripped one side off. Tie this guy in by the tip. Work our way forward here. 2 or 3 turns, and since we built the taper back down, you know, we have some, you know, room to work with here at the head. That way the bronze mallard, when we mount the wings, it won't be too big. We'll have a nice head that's proportionate to the body. And I really like these flies. They're you know, it's fishy as it is. You really don't even need the wing to fish. You can probably fish it as is and they'll probably fish just fine, but to kind of keep with what a spade fly really is, we're going to get the wings on here, and as you can see, I'm brushing this out a little bit and just kind of playing around with it, getting the fibers broken up. And I like to come back in with my fingers just here at the front. I try to pinch these fibers down below the hook shank just so they're out of the way for now. For a show fly, I might take the time to pluck some of these fibers or trim them really close just so they don't go haywire when they're in the frame. But for a fishing fly, this stuff's going to be moving around real nice in the water and very attractive to the fish. Alright, now we got our bronze mallard feathers selected already as far as left and right. And on these flies with the bronze mallard, you want to tie these in by this soft gray area down in here. You might only get 1 wing per feather, maybe 2 per feather. Once you start getting up past this gray area in here, you start getting up in here, the fibers become a little bit stiffer and they tend to roll a lot, but the fibers at the base down in the lower in the gray area, they're a bit softer. Now, there's a couple ways you can tie these in. Like this feather here, you can take and you can tie it in as is as the wing on the far side after you cut a strip off. You can even tie it in on this side this way if you want to. It kind of has a nice hump that way. Some people say this is the wrong way I do it, but it seems to work pretty good for me, and the fish don't mind. And if you look in John Shuey's book, there's a picture on one of the pages. It says I think it says a Scotch wing before being prepared, or prepared for the wing. And if you look carefully at it and notice the barrings and how they align up. So that's one side, and that's how it looks there. It's stripped down the other way, the other side. And we'll do the same thing with the other wings. We'll have it ready to go. And don't pull these fibers off the stem. Just keep them on there for now. Trim them off. Now we got our wing slips. Now, what I like to do for the far wing, I like to mount the far wing first. I take my bodkin, I pull the thread over it down underneath, and I can double over my thread. 3 or 4 turns is enough to keep it from unraveling. Take this first wing, and I want the tips to go just back to the body, just over the body, just a little bit. You don't want the wings all the way back to the hook and going over it. You want the very tip to just stop right in this area, just behind it, not all the way back where the bend is. Now this is going to be like the D-fly wings. Setting them, it's very similar. A little bit different because the material is different, but as far as the process and holding it and the pressure and all that jazz, it's very close to being the same. So I'm just pressing that down lightly with my finger there. Do a loose wrap over. Tighten it down a little bit, not a lot. I just want to see what's going on there. And I can use my thumbnail, straighten this guy out a little bit, get it set, and then when it's where I want it, then I can make some tighter wraps. And I'm pulling this thread away from me horizontally, not up or down. It seems to help that wing sit nice and low. And you want that, you don't want the wings to elapse, so you want to maintain a center line there. So that mounted right in the middle. So that was the near wing. Excuse me, the far wing. Now I'm going to get my bodkin again. I'm going to switch the thread back to the normal direction, or the normal direction for a right-hander, I guess I should say. Get our slip for the near side. Try to align the tips there so the wings are the same length. That's looking pretty good. Just going to hold that down with the top of my finger there, or just the pad of my finger, excuse me. Just a light turn and another light turn, and then we're going to see how things are sitting here. Not too bad. I came out good first try there. Little adjustment here up at the front. There's just a tad bit of gap in between the two wings. So as you can see, it looks like the bottom of a boat's hull without a keel. Hold those wings nice and firm. And make sure your wraps are tight. Now typically I'd actually put some head cement on the front of here and set this side to fly away for a little while, just to let that dry, and that way when you trim this you're not going to misalign any of these fibers, because sometimes the scissor tips have a tendency to grab and maybe pull, or you might miss a fiber. But for time's sake, I'm just going to go through and trim it right now. You don't have to trim it all at once. That's usually when things go bad. So just do, little snips at a time. Alright, so now we got our wings on. You don't really want the wings to go down too far below the side. Really, you don't want them to go below the side at all. Some people say they should sit directly on top. I kind of like the look when it just comes down right about to where it is, not below the eye, this bottom line. Don't want that coming below that point. Now we got everything set. Now we're just going to tidy up the head. Make that nice and neat. Get our whip finish tool here. finish her off. So that's the Purple King for you. Obviously you would finish this fly off with a couple coats of head cement. I prefer using a thin set head cement. That way it penetrates the fibers very quickly. Let that dry, then come back out and put 2 to 3 coats of Celear varnish on top, and that'll give you a nice glossy, smooth looking head. So this is the Purple King, and it is just about ready to go fishing for steelhead. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and tight lines.